Pattaya City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
Excuse me. Okay, done. So we don't interrupt the speaker or those around us. And if you need to chat, please go outside. Sound does carry, and even if you try and whisper to people, it's very annoying to other people. We're still waiting for Peter. Oh, no, the other half is here. She's just walked in. Okay, that's fine. Well, today's speaker I've known for, quite a few years, isn't it, Dave? And I'm very sorry to see that he's ended up in this wheelchair, but he's a character even so, and he sort of lives over it and just gets on with life, which is pretty good going to do. As you said, the option's not very good. Dave actually owns the Canterbury Tales Bookshop, and it was one of my haunts for quite a number of occasions, because I used to go in, browse the books and have a breakfast as well while I was there, which was a pretty reasonable price, with a very large mug of coffee. I always remember it's one of the biggest mugs I think you used to get anywhere, and it was all at a very reasonable price. So Dave is here today to talk about Canterbury Tales, which, if you've read the newsletter, he named it after Chaucer's book, The Canterbury Tales. And he'll tell us about how it all came into being and what's going to happen for the future as well. Okay, Dave, I'll put the microphone into there and swing it round for you.
Hey there. All right, working? Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'm just checking actually in case I owe anybody any money. Can't see anybody, maybe one or two. Anyway, yes, I'm from Canterbury, in the good old state of Kent, which is under lockdown at the moment. Apparently, my family tells me. But I moved here in 2003 after coming on holiday, and lived in Bangkok for a year, just for a year out. Turn it down a bit. All right. Okay, wonderful. Oh, that's probably, how's that? Smells wonderful. Right. And anyway, I came, where was I? I came on holiday in the year 2000 and enjoyed my holiday, moved to Bangkok in 2003 for a year, but never went back. After a year and doing some voluntary teaching and so on in Bangkok, I met my now wife. We've been together nearly 15 years and married for 14 and so on. She was a teacher and she's now my carer. Anyway, I didn't like Bangkok from the traffic and pollution point of view, so to start a business, we moved to Pattaya for the tourist trade, and initially bought a building and renovated it with the rooms, and we were going to sell it on and carry on like that. But we decided to open a cafe opposite. Anybody remembers Crazy Dave's, which was very, very comical for some time, because Crazy Dave liked a beer or two and so on. Anyway. Then the shop we're in now came available, so we grabbed it because it was double the size, and we done breakfast right up until actually a couple of years ago, and so many breakfast places open, we stopped doing breakfast. anyway, we named it Canterbury Tales, which was very fitting because there was a few books in the new building, and we was going to dump them actually at first because they were so old. But I thought, well, we'll give it a go, and see how that goes, because it's good under the radar business, and there's a lot of people, obviously expats, who read books, and it stemmed from there. We used to go around all the hotels buying up books, and anywhere we could, and we don't buy books now because we just got too many, but that's how it all started. And Geoffrey Chaucer, if anyone knows the story about Geoffrey Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales, it's not overly dissimilar to people coming to Thailand and enjoying themselves. Anyway, we had rooms as well. We used to have about 28 rooms, but we've gone back now since I've got this bloody illness. And we have 9 rooms, a cafe, and a bookshop, and it keeps it keeps people in reading material, and we have a lot of fun in the bookshop with all the characters that come in and so on. So it's kept me going. And then in 2013, after I started to feel some weakness for no apparent reason, I went and had some tests done, and I had a thing called myositis, which is a muscle wasting illness, which is very, very slow. And for the past 2.5 years or so, I've been in a wheelchair, and all your muscles go, and you feel the cold, and you get all the things that come along with it, myopathy and God knows what. So it's been very frustrating, but I still keep myself active with the group on the Facebook and so on, the Canterbury Tales Bookshop group, and various other groups I'm a member of. And I keep thrashing the bookshop out there because there's a lot of expats who basically buy books. Anyway, that's probably how it all started. And hang on, let me just go to my script. Yes, I've done some voluntary teaching in Bangkok, which was great fun, and I've always suggested to anybody who has time on their hands to do some teaching if they can, because you get a lot of good feedback from the locals, and it's just great fun, and you understand more about the culture when you do stuff like that. Because obviously back in the sticks out where I lived before, in Minbury, it's just a government school, and they were very appreciative of somebody who was helping the kids with their English. And of course, I'm no teacher. My background is I was a gamekeeper for many, many years in the UK, rearing pheasants and partridges and so on, and doing vermin, and so on like that. So from that to a life in Pattaya was quite a contrast, really. But you don't know what you're capable of or until you actually do it. And so yes, it was great fun. I met my wife, as I say, I've been with now for 15 years, and she's a good girl. She's obviously Thai, from Loy, and she was a teacher, and I took her out of that wonderful life, and we started the business. So there we are. Where are we? As you can see, my functions are very varied now. In fact, I got stuck in the loo. I couldn't open the door, and I was saved by Brian, thankfully. I couldn't. There we are. So anyway, getting back to the bookshop, I can't do a lot now. I have to rely on the staff, of course. But it's still a thriving, even though in these times it's a bit slow with no tourists here. So we're not getting a lot of books traded in, the newer books, unfortunately, which keeps us going. But we have enough stock to keep it interesting, and we have sections on war and true crime, and the Vietnam War, which is always quite popular. We have politics and non-fiction is very busy section, the biographies, a lot of travel guides from all over Southeast Asia mainly, and probably the most popular books are the Thai stories, starting with Private Dancer by Stephen Leather. Stephen used to come in the shop and sign the books and so on, but he's too busy now. And but his crime fiction is very popular as well. He's done a lot of crime fiction, and they recently made a movie of his book called The Chinaman, although they had to change the name to The Foreigner for the movie because they was worried about upsetting Chinese people. And Stephen himself told me that because I asked him why they changed the name. But anyway, it's not a bad movie. The next, probably most popular book, and I always say to people, if you're considering getting involved in any crime in Thailand, read this first, The Damage Done, which is a guy who got put in prison for drugs, and his story about being in prison in Bangkok, which is quite horrendous, and probably you've read other books and seen a movie or two. There's also Welcome to Hell, which I don't have with me today, but that's also another very good book about Thailand prisons. Another book that's very popular, and it's just been produced a couple of years ago now, A Woman of Bangkok, by Jack Reynolds. Now, that was published, I think, in 1956 or something like that, and it's been republished now because it's very good. It's been voted the top 10 in Thailand of all time of Thailand books, and it's a similar book to Private Dancer, but from obviously a long time ago, and it shows that things haven't really changed a lot with relationships or so between Phalungs and Thai ladies. The most recent book out, which has got a lot of very good reviews, is, I can't even lift it, Pattaya 2020, by an author called Phil Hall. And if you're actually interested, because we don't have any left now, only this one, and that's not mine as it goes, but he's on Amazon Books. If you go on to Phil Hall Amazon Books, you can get his e-book or his book by post. But that's got a lot of very good reviews for the latest book on Thailand. Excuse me one moment. But anyway, with the books, you can come in, trade in your books that you've finished with or you don't want anymore. We offer 50% on all books brought back that you buy from us, and we have grubby old fiction books and classics, for example, that are very old but quite sought after, for around about 60 baht upwards. A lot of the books are around 100 baht, but you get 50% when you bring them back. And as I say, you can trade in books from anywhere, which has always been quite a popular thing. And we're pretty much the only used bookshop. There's a couple of smaller ones, but in Pattaya now, predominantly English language. We have a few French, German, Scandinavian, and Dutch, and Italian even. But of course, there's not many people around at the moment, so they're pretty stagnant. But yeah, I have a group on Facebook mainly called Canterbury Tales. You can always find it, Canterbury Tales Bookshop Pattaya, and I post books and schedule them to go on. It gives the people an idea of what we have in on a daily basis, and they go on. One goes on just about every hour on my group. So that keeps me busy and gives me a bit of a purpose, because one of the few things I can do now is use the computer, and it keeps me busy and not away from the boredom. With the bookshop itself, obviously I struggle with the sorting out of the books, but the staff are very good, and I get a couple of guys who help me out and sort out the rubbish, and or try to anyway, and keep the books in order. So yes, it's a good business. We have 9 rooms above the bookshop. 5 are booked out long-term guys helps us a lot this time of year, although we've had to cut our prices right down, of course, to facilitate what's going on. And hopefully, if we can get through this, which we are doing, just about getting through this period until things get back to normal, whatever that may be, then we've cracked it, really. You know, I've been here a long time now, and I'm fully acclimatised to the weather. I'm bloody freezing as it goes, and it's so cold out there. Coming down on a sidecar, I have my lad who works for us drives a sidecar with me on it, and I thought it was going to snow. It was absolutely freezing coming down here, and I have the myopathy, as you can imagine, with the lack of movement, and my feet are pretty cold all the time anyway. And as I say, I went to into the toilet just now, and Brian thankfully shut the door, of course, for a bit of privacy, and then I couldn't get out, so I had to make a phone call. Oh dear. But yeah, it's a nightmare, and everything was going fine until I caught this illness, and of course I can't get insurance now. But thankfully there's not a lot they can do. There's no treatment and no cure. They don't know how I got it. I had dengue fever about 12 years ago, and there's a theory that could have triggered it in my system. But there's no treatment, no cure. But it's all the things that come along with being immobile. But luckily I have my wife's very good, and I have the chair and so on, so I can get around. I go down to the bookshop 3 or 4 days a week, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and have a bit of fun with the lads. And the characters we get in there, and who I've met over the years, is just, you know, it makes it so much fun. And I'm thankful for that, because I'd probably be stuck in a room back in the UK with nobody visiting or nothing. So I got that to be thankful for. And the business keeps me occupied, you know, and I'm still a bit of a workaholic with the books online and so on. But it keeps me occupied and keeps me active and gives you a purpose, which you need. And I don't drink at all now. I used to go out and have a few beers with the lads and watch the footy and stuff, but obviously I can't do that now, because it's a bit awkward when you're in a bar and you need to go to the toilet and you've got to go and pee in a bottle in the corner. It doesn't really fit with the bar scene, you know. So I don't go out anymore. But there we are. I used to play golf, which is great in Thailand, and all of a sudden your life changes completely, you know, and you just have to battle on with what you can do and so on. And the bookshop and Guesthouse keeps me busy. So there we are. I can't think of anything else to say much. Yeah, okay. I started to feel a bit of weakness, and I thought I was, you know, because I'd put on a bit of weight being in Thailand, like you do, or you can do, and I thought I was just getting lazy. And the first time I absolutely knew there was something wrong, I took my daughter actually to the floating market. She'd come over from England with her children and so on, and I sat in the boat, which was obviously very low, and when we got to the end, I couldn't get up, physically couldn't get up, and obviously from the weakness, and that provoked me into going to get some tests done. They took a biopsy and various other things, a blood test, and the biopsy went off to the US to be tested, and it came back as myositis, inclusion body myositis, which is nobody, even the neurologist here at the Bangkok Pattaya, had never heard of it. And I went home and studied it, basically, and when I read all about it, I was shocked and stunned because of what the future was going to hold. And you know, it's just mind-boggling that one minute you're wandering around great, enjoying yourself and living the life and so on in paradise of the climate and everything else, and all of a sudden, you know, in a few years' time you're going to be in a wheelchair and etc. Of course, it doesn't explain, when you read about the illness, all the things that come along with it. And there's so many things, but from being immobile, the myopathy and stuff. My hands now, the left hand particularly, is pretty useless. And one or two people who watch me eating will confirm that, because most of it ends up down my shirt, and the wife has to get it out when I get home. But yeah, it's very debilitating. I have a patient hoist at home, and my wife lifts me up with that, with a sling and so on. And I can't get insurance, as I said, anymore, and you know, you just have to battle through. But I don't need constant medication. I try and live as healthy as I can, and I do turmeric and stuff like that for the anti-inflammatory. But for example, when I'm in bed, I can't turn over on my own. My wife has to turn me over, and it's so frustrating. And you know, you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. But thankfully, I'm a sort of person that wakes up in the morning and decides I'm going to be happy instead of a miserable bugger, you know, because I've got this. Even with the fact, and excuse me ladies, but recently I had to be circumcised, which is not something you look forward to at 63 years old, but all part of the things that go on with this illness. And as I say, it's so frustrating, and you know, but what do? You have to get on with it, because the alternative is pretty poor, you know. But I do try to live as healthy as I can. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I eat good food, although too much of it, and I'm a bit of a bugger for chocolate, so you know, I tell my wife, don't buy it for me, and then I can't eat it, because you put it in front of me and I'll eat it, you know, and so on. But yeah, the illness itself it's quite popular in the West, or even in the US, because I'm on a forum, a Myositis forum in America, or from America, and unfortunately, you know, the medical profession just give you all these pills, and they try to do that here, but I try not to take them because of the side effects. But I watch what I eat, because I get gout as well. That's another thing that comes along with the wrong diet and so on. So yeah, it's pretty frustrating, to be honest. But you know, you never know what's round the corner in life, eh? You know. Oh, I daren't. Oh, can I tell you a donkey story? This might shock a few people, actually. Sorry, ladies. Basically, when I was a gamekeeper, it included going around at night with a lamp and a rifle and clearing up the vermin if there was too many foxes. And of course, we used to shoot deer and various other things. But we were stalking this fox one night on a windy night in Shropshire, in the UK, and basically you have a big powerful lamp, and you see the eyes like you would of a cat on the road, but you see the eyes, and you then call the fox, and I can't really do it very well. I'll try my best. Similar to that, and the fox thinks it's a rabbit in distress, and they come and you shoot the buggers, and that's pretty much the size of it. And one night we were squeaking this fox, and it was obviously very cautious and probably been lamped before and shot at and maybe missed or whatever. And it was going along this bank about 260 yards away, and every time the lamp caught its eyes and I squeaked, it ducked down out of the way, and it was a very testing fox to shoot. And of course most people would say, well, good. But anyway, it carried on going, and then I saw in between all this grass that was blowing on the bank, I could see the eye lighting up, and I thought, oh, he thinks I can't see him. So basically I lined up and I fired, and I knew I'd hit what I thought it was, the fox, because of the noise the bullet made when it gets there. There's either a crack from it hitting bone or a sort of flop from shooting it in the heart. But anyway, we went over to pick it up, and it was a bloody donkey laying on the lee side of the hill, the bank, and of course he was looking up, you know, could hear this noise, and he was obviously thinking, what the hell's that? And I'd shot the bloody donkey right below the eye, and I do apologise to anybody a bit sensitive to that, but that's what we did back in the days. And of course I then we couldn't pick it up and hide it, so I had to go and tell the farmer the next day. And I said, I'm very sorry, but we were out foxing, and I've shot your donkey. And he said, how did you mistake a donkey for a fox? But I told him obviously it was still laying there, and he had to go and pick it up. And unfortunately, it was his daughter's pet, which made it all the worse. But luckily, or thankfully, she was older now, and she was at university. And I hope there's no one knows about this story and tells her, because he told her the donkey had obviously died of old age or something. But I was obviously very disappointed that I'd shot a donkey, expecting it to be a fox. And I had the mickey took out of me for quite some years. In fact, some of my friends back in the UK still do ask me about the donkey. So, but there we are. That was the donkey story. But yeah, back in the day, we used to do the vermin control, and very effective at night time. We'd catch up with a few poachers as well, but we couldn't shoot them, of course. But we used to disable their vehicles if they were very often gypsies or something like that. But there we are, back in the day. And I don't know how, I look back, I still dream about pheasants and foxes, and not donkeys actually. But I wonder how I ended up in Thailand or Pattaya running a bookshop. It was quite a contrast with that life to this. But I've always found it, the guys in Canterbury Tales over the years, I've met some wonderful characters, obviously some not so wonderful as well, but it's been great fun, and still is. We still, the soy now, it used to be quite quiet. If anybody knows Canterbury Tales Bookshop, which I know one or two of you do, what goes on across the road is absolutely, fascinating, because there's a bar across the road, and it's the typical sort of Pattaya bar, and it doesn't fit in very well with a bookshop, but it's quite unique. Just the other day, the police came along and went across the road, and apparently a guy staying there hadn't paid his bill, and they was chucking him out. And of course I was warning our staff, if he comes over here for a room, we haven't got one, because he owed for 2 weeks for a room and food apparently. But yeah, it's been great fun. It's been the best part of my experience in Thailand, as well as being able to stay here, in a reasonable, comfortable life, but meeting all the characters. I was just going through my computer over this lockdown before, and because I keep all the photos, so many photos, and one thing I was shocked at, the amount of photos I was going through that people have passed away since I've been here. But yeah, I've got some great stories, and one day maybe I'll write a book and put all my experiences in there. The Irish guy I had to go and find him on Beach Road, and as I got to Beach Road, because he was booked a room but he couldn't find it because he was so drunk, and I got to Beach Road and weaved through the traffic that was all backed up because the guy was standing in the road having a pee, and he'd stopped all the traffic. And I've got some great stories of guests and things like that. So maybe one day I'll write a book as well, the further Canterbury Tales, because Geoffrey Chaucer, a lot of his stuff was a similar thing. But yes, anyway, it's been great fun, and long may it continue. Yes.
Hang on.
Oh.
How many years were you a ranger? That you did your forestry work?
Oh, I from when I was a child, really, I lived on the edge of Canterbury, and I used to go bird's egg collecting, and the old gamekeeper that used to be there used to catch us and clip us around the ear, and that when we were kids, and I very quickly got interested in the countryside life and so on, and he then said to us when we was sort of 8 and 9 years old, if we find a pheasant's nest or a partridge nest, he would give us threepence, and if we found a and that was the old money, of course, and a crow's nest or vermin, he would give us threepence as well, and so on. So through the summer, I was there. I was earning more money than my father, and we would climb trees and, you know, grab the corvids, the crows, and so on. And a lot of people are against that sort of thing, and I understand that. But when you've seen a crow has pecked the eyes out of a lamb being born, you then get very anti them, you know. But anyway, I started then, and when I left school at 15, I was already had the job of doing it, and I did that for a few years, about 7 years there, and then I got a job on a place called Eastwell Park in Ashford, which was a big estate, nearly 5,000 acres. We used to rear 30,000 pheasants and ducks and partridges and so on, and that was absolutely, you know, we had Captain Mark Phillips and people like that came shooting at that estate, and it was a very prestigious estate in Kent. I then went to Glastonbury Park in Goldhurst, then to Spy Park in Wiltshire, then to Downton Park in Shropshire over a period of years, and then I basically was having marriage problems. I came back to Kent and packed it all in basically. I then, what do I do now sort of thing after 30 years or so of gamekeeping, so I did some voluntary work in Canterbury at a deaf and disabled centre. I also joined the Samaritans in Canterbury, and I was doing the prisons, the listener scheme in the prisons, which was also very fascinating. And I was surprised I could put my hand to other things as gamekeeping, because that's all I'd ever done. And it was through, ironically, a strange connection from the prisons. There was a guy in there, because I would be called to, you know, given a message to come and see an inmate, and I went to see a guy, Michael Smith actually, who I knew as a kid in Canterbury, and he was in there for drugs, and I then looked at watched his sentence carry on. He actually got out of prison, and I tried to keep him off the drugs. I'd done a thing with his ex-wife to see his children, but I promised her that if he went back on drugs, I would stop that, or I would tell her. And anyway, he did, unfortunately, but he had a taxi firm in Canterbury called Lynx Taxis, and he got murdered for the drugs money he owed before. And I'd started doing like a Saturday night taxi driving for a little bit of cash, but so I could keep my eye on him. And anyway, he was shot, and then I thought, well, I'll carry on the taxi driving. So I bought a car and started doing the taxi driving. And I met another taxi driver who had come out here, who'd been here on holiday, and I'd been through a divorce and so on, and I'd only ever done family holidays. And this guy said, why don't you come to Thailand for a holiday, which first time I came in the millennium year 2000. And that's how it all started, basically. So yeah, from gamekeeping to taxi driver to Samaritans to Pattaya. I don't know where the connection is really, but you know, that's the way life is, eh? You know, it just takes you on all sorts of journeys, you know. So yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
You must have met quite a few authors coming in, for instance, and signing their books or bringing books in. Have you got any, would you like to mention a few, and have you got any dirty stories on them or anything like that? Any dirt?
Probably. Private Dancer, getting back to that, I met Stephen quite a few years ago. I used to buy books off him directly, and he would sign them. And he actually told me the basis of Private Dancer was a lot of his own experiences. He doesn't always admit that because of the content, but that was basically a lot of his experiences was related to the book. He used to bring them in, but he's very busy now with his fiction. He's always got another book on the go. Apparently he goes to Dublin in the quiet to write his books. He has a Thai wife and daughter, and in Bangkok. but I've not seen him for several years. Dean Barrett, if anybody knows of Dean Barrett's books, he's an American author, lives in Bangkok. He's quite a character. I went years ago to buy books directly from Dean, and he showed me into his book room in his condo, and it was an absolute bomb site. It was just books everywhere. Anyway, I rustled through the books for a couple of hours, and I bought quite a lot of books off him, and I paid him the cash when we used to buy books like that. And he said, right, that's my electric money, that's my water bill and rent, and that's my soy cowboy money. And there was a bigger pile in that end, I can assure you, and that was where it was going, down there. Christopher G. Moore has been into the bookshop. His books are a little bit high-end, really expensive when they're new, and we struggle to sell the new books because they're like 450 baht, 550 baht, because we get them in second hand, and we sell them for sort of anything between 100 and 180 baht. So, and of course you get the 50% back when you bring the books back. So, you know, you can buy a book that was, you know, 500 baht in Asia books. From us it's 100 and maybe 180, but it ends up costing you 90 baht because you get 50% back off. And of course you can trade in other books as well, and we get a lot of that, especially as times are a bit harder. People, I guess, go around and find books and trade them in with us, but that's fine because it keeps our stock turning over. Other authors, the other one who's going to be popping in when he can get back to Thailand, Phil Hall. He has several books out actually. He's got a sequel to that coming out, but we had a few in that he sent over, but we quickly sold out of them. But they're available on Asia Books. But Phil's coming out when he can, and he's going to hopefully do a bit of a book signing because he's got several books on Thailand and so on. The other one, Bangkok to Timbuktu or something, we actually have that in the shop, and we're selling it on Phil's behalf because he sent a load down, and he gave us the books, but we're selling them, and the money's going to the local dog pound. He asked me if we made any money on them, so we're selling them purely for no profit. The money's going to the dog pound, which I'm not overly happy about because I had a dog run out in front of me one time in Thailand here, and I came off, dislocated my shoulder and broke 2 ribs. So stray dogs are not my favourite thing, but anyway, there we are. That's a life. Other authors, there's been a few others recently. As you know, we had Tweed Harris brought his book in. Excuse me. He's a gay gentleman in Thailand. I've moved up country now a bit, but he brought his book in recently. We're selling that. But yeah, there's been quite a lot of local authors that we sell books for. But probably the busiest section altogether is the fiction, which we have an A to Z from Jeffrey Archer, right the way round. They're pretty easy to follow, and you know we've got a lot of fiction books. So yeah. Any other questions? Have I got anything else on my script?
Any more questions for this very entertaining gentleman?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Brian.
I'm not. I'm delighted to see you, Dave. I know it's been a while, mate, but
No problem.
what I found over recent years is if I try and drive down your street on my motorbike, I really do upset my stomach. Your soy chaipan seems to be neglected by the local town council.
That's an understatement.
And you have explained it to me many times. Maybe you'd be interested to explain why it is that they leave your street to go to rack and ruin.
Yeah.
And it's not because of what's in it, I can assure them.
No, I mean, it's probably the worst soy in Pattaya. It's known as soy pothole by many. We renamed it soy fruit cake, because we get a lot of nutcases down there. It seems to have a magnetic thing. I don't know whether it's me or what it is, but we seem to get every nutter in the Pattaya comes to the bookshop and joins in the fun. And some are pretty far out there. You know, we've had everything from SAS snipers to serial killers and God knows what. But as I say, it's been great fun. But the soy, the story goes, the soy was built by a subsidiary of Toyota, and they gave back the soy to the government or the Thai council some years ago now, and it's in the queue to be renovated. Basically, the drainage is very, very poor, and it floods down the bottom end quite a lot. We 3 or 4 times a year have a foot of water in the bookshop, but which is why all the books are a foot and a half off the ground, and the poor old staff have to mop up the sediment as it comes in. And there has been times when there's been weird, strange-looking things floating in the water, which we won't go into. But anyway, the staff, poor old buggers, have to mop up all the sediment afterwards, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. The water comes up, you wait for it to go down and go out the door, and then you mop up. So that's it. But the drainage needs to be done, and one day they'll no doubt start at the soy bacao end and dig it all up, and it will probably take 6 months to put the drains in and then refill again. But we do have a back door, so and don't mention a lot of people in Pattaya like the back door, but it'll help us when you can't get up the front of the shop. People can come in the back door. But one day it will be done. When is anybody's guess, because we've heard, there's people up the soy with clipboards writing stuff down 2 years ago, when you think, oh, they're going to do the street, but the ideal time would have been to do it would have been now. But they'll wait till everything gets back to normal, no doubt, and then they'll dig the soy up. But I still maintain that the most fitting name is soy fruitcake, because there's never hardly a day goes by when there's not something going on. And ironically, there's been 3 or 4 new bars opened up in the past few weeks, and only recently, in fact, somebody opened up Crazy Dave's, because that's been sold now, and they made a bar, and it lasted 4 months, I think, and they've gone now. So, to open a bar this time of this current climate is basically ridiculous. But anyway, it's a very busy soy. It's been people say that when soy 6 goes to the wall, that it's going to be the new soy 6, and it's quite unique to have a bookshop in that environment. And we've looked about moving possibly, and I recently said possibly the thing that's going on in Excite, all that big new complex, that may be a good place for us to move to. But then quite a few of the regulars, no, they don't want to do that, because they come there to watch what goes on across the road. And I have some pretty awesome photos of what goes on across the road, and a few good videos. Maybe I'll send them to put them up there. But anyway, for me now, I'm looking more towards a more peaceful, tranquil, time of life. And sometimes the music's so loud across the road, you're shouting at each other to talk, and that's a pain in the ass. But of course, I recently asked the owner, who one of the best Thai stories I've ever in Thai story relationships, why you should never get into one without any common sense. I spoke to him who put a lot of money into his young lady, and you probably know the story. Anyway, I asked him, could you possibly turn the music down a little bit, because even some of the guys across the road in the bars was going, oh, it's too noisy, and leaving, but he has no control whatsoever, and so on. But it's quite a sad story, his story, even though I warned him about what was going on or what would be going on. And for instance, he bought his girlfriend a farm for the family up in middle of Thailand somewhere, and then everybody found out they already owned the farm. And she said, well, what about the animals? He had to buy some animals as well, and they already owned them anyway. So he was one of those that had been through doing a Thai relationship the wrong way. But anyway, he's not the first and won't be the last. But you know, I can say I've been very lucky. My wife was a teacher, and I met her, and I'm 63, she's 55 now, and she's a diamond. I mean, I'd be absolutely screwed without her, you know. And the things she does, I couldn't do it the other way around. As you can imagine, all my functions, she's an absolute diamond, and I couldn't be without her, you know. Even though she's got her mum down, her mum comes to stay for a few months every year, and her mum just wants her to go to the temple and give a load of money to the monks and stuff, and my wife's not sort of into that sort of thing. And I say to you know, you've got to be aware that this virus, and business-wise, because we're not making any money at the moment, of course, we're just getting by, this could go on for another year at least. So don't be giving any money away to anybody who don't need it, you know. But no, she's great. I mean, we get on very well. We have a laugh. She's probably as good a friend as I've got in Thailand, as well as being my wife. And as I say, the things she does for me, I couldn't do the other way around. And obviously women have this thing, you know, changing babies' nappies. I couldn't do that either when I had to do it. So, you know, she's good. She's very good.
Just quickly, the books you bought, I did suggest you bring some books for sale. Are those books for sale?
Well, that one's not, because I had to borrow that because we'd sold out in the shop. These three are, we can do, but we've got, we haven't got many private dancers because they come and they go out very quickly. We have a few of these, the woman in Bangkok in the shop. We sell these at the moment. I think they're 160 baht, and of course you could bring them back. Pretty much the same damage done. We have quite a few. We've got a lot of true crime and Welcome to Hell and stuff like that. And the other one, we have quite a few of those, around about 160 baht. These we normally buy them from, because we can't get enough traded in. We normally buy them from Amazon, or get people to buy them in the UK and bring them over when they come, which is why it's dearer, because they cost us, you know, something, whatever, and we don't make too much on them. But for example, these an Asia books, I think, are 450. I'm not sure. You'd have to check, because I've not checked for some time. But we sell them. They're used, of course, but in pretty new condition. For 340 baht, this one at the moment, and if we get them and trade it in, they're a lot cheaper, because obviously we just trade them, but we can't get enough private dancers. Obviously, I do have it on a PDF file. If anybody emails me, I'll send it to them free on a PDF. You can read it on your computer or transfer it onto a Kindle or whatever. But yeah, we have a lot of true crime and Thailand stories and the Vietnam War and a lot of stuff like that. The only one I can't get enough of at the moment, because since I put it out there, we only had about 10 or 8 or 10 that Phil sent down from Bangkok. But I can't get enough of those. When he comes over, I'm hoping to get a few more, because they sold very well and there's a lot of good reviews. But we do have his other one, his Bangkok to Ben Nevis backwards, which we're selling for, I think, 140 baht or something, but that's going to the stray dog thing. But yeah, I'd say the most popular are the Thai-related stuff, the crime, as well as the private dancer and the stuff like that. We get occasionally Money Number One has always been quite popular, but again, we just don't seem to get many of them now. People keep the good books like that and not trade them back in. There's A Fool in Paradise, a little series of 3 books. We don't get many of those in. But we've got quite a lot of true crime and a lot of war books, and we have, as I say, we have a ladies' book section, you know, the Mae Beachy sort of stuff, and as well as a lot of lady authors of the crime, like Martina Cole and Patricia Cornwall, always very popular, and a lot of guys actually read obviously normal Bernard Cornwell and stuff like that, and then often they'll read a Patricia Cornwell and realise how good an author she is. And there's quite a few like that. Martina Cole is quite popular, so on. So, and Val McDermott. So yeah, there's we have a good selection. Most people who read often comment that we've got a very good selection. So, of course, everybody's welcome to come and have a browse. So on.
Okay. I think a round of applause for this young gentleman
Thank you.
and
Thank
his
you.
life.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Dave. Thank you very much for your presentation. You mentioned Christopher Moore. I've actually met him, quite friendly with him. He's used to come to Eel Swamp on a regular basis, and I've got most of his books and all signed by him as well. And I always remember the first one he brought out was The Spirit House, if I remember rightly. Yeah. And I always remember someone else who read The Spirit House, said to me, obviously the Thais have not read this book because they wouldn't have allowed him to stay here from what he says in the book, which is quite interesting. But it's a whole series of books that goes on. Basically, it was a policeman who came to Thailand, and he ends up like a private detective, but he works quite closely with some of the Thai police, and it's a bit of an eye-opener if you read that one. Anyway, sir, thank you very much for your chat, and we'd like you to present you with, I'll just show you the front quickly. Okay, and that's to say thank you very much for your talk and coming to see us, and best of luck with the future.